Cowboys is an award-winning film that tells the story of a troubled but well-intentioned father, Troy, and his trans son, Joe. When Troy's ex-wife refuses to let go of her little girl, refuses to let Joe live as his authentic self, father and son head off into the Montana wilderness on a camping trip that rapidly turns into an escape from the authorities. It is a film that will strike a chord with many in and around the trans community, not only young trans people, but parents and friends of trans children as well. In this interview, film critic and former chair of Transmedia Watch, Jennie Kermode, speaks with director Anna Kerrigan and with Sasha Knight, who plays the role of Joe, about their experience in making this film, what were the challenges they faced, and what do they hope it will achieve.
Hello, and it's great to meet you both, Anna and Sasha. Anna is the director of the film, and Sasha is its young star. So, Anna, maybe you could start by telling us a bit about the story for people who are learning about the film for the first time.
Sure. Cowboys follows a trans kid played by Sasha and his father played by Steve Zahn in rural Western Montana. They are outlaws. They are on the run from a world that doesn't really accept either of them for who they are.
Mm-hmm. And so you told me when we spoke before that you met an awful lot of kids before you found the right one, and Sasha. So what made you feel that Sasha had that particular magic that was going to work?
I mean, when you know, like initially I watched some tapes. First, it was a self-tape that Sasha made where he did the sides, and then he made our short list and he worked with our casting director, Edie Belasco. And I was just really impressed with his ability. I mean, he just had a strong grasp of the material. He was supernatural. He looks like Paul Newman. And he also just, Jillian and Steve had been cast already, and he looked so much like he could be their kid. It just felt like this sort of magical, moment when we found him.
Mm-hmm. And Sasha, how did you feel about suddenly getting the chance to star in a film?
I was so excited, like very, very, very excited.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an incredible film, and I'm so happy I got to be a part of it.
Was it interesting to play a trans kid?
I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, it's the only role I've played, so I can't really compare it to anything else.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And did you have an exciting time on set? Because there were some quite dramatic things that you had to do, weren't there? Like going through the forest and going in the river and so on.
Yeah, I did. I love doing that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I found it interesting because it's a story that, does feature a trans kid, but it's not all about being trans. And to an extent, it's about the kid growing up and having to become a man very early on in life, rather than to just, transitioning into a different gender role. So do you feel that either of you, that there need to be more stories like that it's time to stop just telling the same stories about trans children and look at the more interesting possibilities?
Yeah. Oh, you can go first.
No, you go.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like there needs to be more positive representation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's none of that. I don't know why, but yeah, and I feel like there also needs to be more representation for kids, especially trans masculine, because there's also not very much of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not very much of trans representation, period. And then in the small box, there's not very much of kids. And then in that small box, there's not very much of trans masculine. And in that small box, there's not very much of positive. So let's make it a bigger box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, I think we're just, when stories just revolve around someone's gender identity, like I didn't want to make a movie when I started writing this movie, it was a father-son movie. Like I didn't know that Joe's character was trans. So, for me, that was sort of, the fact that he's transgender is like a catalyst within the film, but it's not what it's about. You know, I think there's so many movies about people coming out. And that's not really, that happens in the film, but it's not, you know, what it focuses on. But I just in general, it seems like, you know, as I've been writing more scripts, I'm trying to leave out any racial descriptors or, you know, gender identity descriptors. Like, I think that it's, if you're transgender or a non-binary actor, you should be up for whatever roles you want to be up for. I think that's progress.
Mm-hmm. What kind of roles would you like to play in future, Sasha, if you got the choice?
Well, I want to play any role basically, but I kind of want to play a cis role just because, not just for this reason. I'd be the first, like I'd be like one of the first. I'd be like the first trans kid to play cis role.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it's important for people to just, you know, then
Yeah,
stop making it fuss and
it
just
kind
see you
of
as a
be
boy?
like, oh yeah, it kind of just normalizes the fact that like I am just a boy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that I'm not all of me is trans, and not all of everybody who's trans is trans. Like, they, just because like you're trans doesn't mean that you're still a boy. Like, I'm just a variation of a boy.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be cool if trans people could play cis roles, because they're not cis, but the character doesn't have to be trans, but the person playing it can be.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot more to this kid as well, isn't there? I mean, he's not just, his story isn't all about him being trans, because he hits a lot of other aspects to his character. Did you work with Anna to think about how you wanted to tell his story and to work out who he was going to be beyond that?
Well, we worked on the script together to like memorize it and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we met a few times, like, because we both are based near LA, and talked about the script, and, you know, and talked about how Sasha's personal experience might relate to, you know, certain parts of the script.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like, I don't know if any of that was helpful, Sasha, but we did it. It was fun.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more in the script, in the story, about different ideas of gender generally, about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. I think we spoke before, you told me that when you were growing up, Anna, you didn't have a particularly gendered background. Your parents let you explore a lot for yourself and find out.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that we're maybe moving towards a bit more in society, or that it helps kids generally to get to just figure it out for themselves?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, you know, even there's just so many ways that gender is restrictive, you know. And I was lucky that both of my parents, you know, I had Barbies and I had trucks and I had toy soldiers and I played in the dirt, and I also, you know, played dress up and whatnot. It's just so much more about when parents, I think that's what kids naturally want to do, is explore who they are and what it means to be one thing versus another, and then, you know, through role playing, sort of like see where you land. Obviously it's not the same as, you know, being a trans experience at all. That's not what I'm saying, but I do think that, like, parents' egos can really get in the way of, like, a kid doesn't care. Like, a kid is not naturally going to be like, well, I'm a girl, so I shouldn't play with a truck or whatever. It's the parents that step in and are worried about what it means if their child is playing with a truck. I had a close friend in kindergarten who came to my house, and he wanted to play with my Barbies. And so he played with my Barbies, and then his mother found out that he played with my Barbies, and I was never allowed to play with them again.
Mm.
You know, it's like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sad. So I'm happy my parents let me
Mm-hmm.
do whatever.
Both the characters who play Joe's parents in the film, they're both kind of they have quite strongly gendered roles in a way, with the
Yes.
father wanting to go off and have adventures in the wilderness, or thinking that that's something that he can do successfully, and with the mother having a very particular idea of how she thinks a girl should be. And those are both very, very interesting roles. I wondered if you wanted to talk a bit about how you cast those roles and how you develop those with the actors.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some aspects to both of those characters that are from people that I know. Like the father, Troy, has some qualities of my dad and other men that I've known. Luckily, my mom is nothing like Sally. But though Sally is lovely in some ways. Yeah, it was important to me to have these characters be locked into their own gender in some way. And that's not something that I don't really think about these things when I first start writing. It's only after I do a few passes and it emerges and I'm like, oh, this is sort of happening. I want to enhance this, or this is an interesting thing to play with. So we started by casting Troy, and we had our actor lists and whatnot. And someone brought up Steve, and I couldn't get him out of my head. I just, he has such amazing chops as an actor. I think he's been very underutilized through his whole career. And he has this, he's sort of known for being a goofball, but I remembered seeing him in Rescue Dawn, that Werner Herzog movie, and I had been struck in that film of, oh my gosh, this guy really goes there and he's willing to be so vulnerable. And when I started talking with Steve about the role, like, luckily he responded to it. He called me from his horse ranch in Kentucky, and where he rides horses and wanders the fields looking for arrowheads, and it's just like living a country life. And he was just the perfect person for the role. And it was very amazing to have him, once we cast Jillian, have him work with Sasha, because the two of them just got along so well and clicked really naturally. And then for Jillian, for Sally, I wanted it to be someone who felt real in that part of the world, like I wanted it to feel like someone who I could see with Steve. And we shared the same agent who set up a meeting with the two of us. And I was a big fan of Jillian's work. And through talking to her, she really sold me on how well she understood the role. And it was just sort of a no-brainer to cast her at that point. But it was very funny working with her on the movie, because she felt so bad whenever Sally was saying, totally clueless, cruel things to Sasha and or to Joe. And in between takes, she would like apologize and want to make sure that like she hadn't scarred Sasha.
How did you feel about that, Sasha?
It was kind of funny.
Did you get along well with the other actors?
What'd you say?
Did you get along well with the other actors? Was it fun working with them?
Yeah.
Sorry, Anna, you were saying.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like Sasha's tough. Like there were a number of times where I was like, a lot of people were like, we have to be really careful, and I found that Sasha was like, actually, Sasha rolled with the punches better than anyone. There was, I won't say which actor, but there was a scene where Sasha's scene partner got like sick essentially after the end of a take and had to leave set. And then I had to read opposite Sasha. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sasha's going to be so upset. We're doing his coverage now. And like, he doesn't have his scene partner. And I pulled Sasha aside and I was like, okay, like so-and-so had to go to the hospital, but, and I'm going to have to read with you, but like, we're going to make it work. I was scared. And Sasha was like, okay, whatever. And then we did the scene and I was like, I really don't like acting. But Sasha afterwards was like, you did a pretty good job. It was funny.
It sounded like you needed a bit of toughness on set as well when you were filming out in the wilderness. Was it interesting doing that? Sasha, or did you find it?
Yeah. It was so pretty. It was just awesome.
Had you been in places like that much before?
Like I lived in Colorado
Hmm.
for like a couple of years.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Kind of.
Sasha's a natural on a horse.
Hmm. That's useful.
Well, I went to horse camp for like 2 years, so I should be.
Hmm. Hmm. So it sounded like you had quite a few challenges filming out there. So with getting to the set and finding suitable locations and so on.
Oh, are you asking me?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, there were, yeah, we always, because of the restrictions of production, wherever we shot, we had to have a vehicle fairly nearby. Like we would, I think the furthest we trudged any place was like 5 minutes away from a road. Just because it adds so much time. If you need something, you have to run back, and like time is money, and time that you're spending getting a light is time that you can't be shooting with your actors and getting performance. But yeah, we shot in a bunch of places that did not have cell reception. There were a lot of challenges in the river scene towards the end of the movie. A rafting company loaned us a raft, and crews set up a pulley system that pulled it across this like rushing river so we could get equipment across it. And there were a lot of very kind of MacGyver-y things that we had to do to make it work on our budget.
Mhm. So what about which were the favorite scenes for the two of you in the film? What were the moments you enjoyed most?
To make or to afterwards?
Well, both if you want.
Here, Sasha, you go first. I have to think about it. What did you like filming the best?
Well, the scene that I liked, the scene that I liked, like the scene that I liked because of the location was the one at the Western Wear store, and then the scene that I liked filming the best was as
Do you want me to answer? You want to think about it?
no, I got it.
Okay.
The crying scene, maybe. I don't.
The crying scene?
Yeah.
Oh, on the river. Oh, we don't want to ruin it. Yeah. You were amazing in that scene.
Thanks.
That's hilarious to me that that's your favorite scene.
It's kind of funny because I'm like, oh, I love doing sad things because whenever I play sad parts, like whenever the character's sad, then it's the most fun.
Do you feel sad after you play a sad scene?
No, I'm just like,
do you feel like it was like a release? Like, do you feel like it's like a stress release?
I don't really know. I was just like, that was cool. Let's do it again.
That's really funny. I love the scene that Sasha's talking about was like a full day on that river, and making that was really fun, but it was stressful because it was a limited amount of time in that place. It's funny. It's the scenes where it was the most logistically difficult, but it came together, were definitely the most satisfying to do. Where we're like, how are we going to do this? And then we did, you know?
Mm-hmm. So what are your hopes for the film now that it's being released in the UK?
Well, I hope.
Well, it's been, oh, sorry, you want to go?
No, you can go.
You go.
No,
You go.
Okay. I hope.
Okay.
I'm sure we can edit around this bit.
Okay, you just go.
Okay. I was letting you go. She'll cut this out, don't worry. It's the film has been released in the States since February. And we've been really lucky. It has received a lot of, critical praise, and I think that it performed pretty well. It's strange to release a movie during COVID. We didn't get to see the movie in theaters, but we had a good festival run. And, I'm, at least in the States, I feel like I'm hearing from people I know and people I don't know, who have been moved by the movie. And I think it's really the letters that I get from people that I've never met before, where, reaching out to someone you don't know to say thank you, like, Troy reminded me of my mother, or, Joe's experience reminded me of my experience, and I'm a trans adult and I never get to see myself or any aspect of my life in film. Like, that's the most rewarding kind of feedback to get for me. So I hope we get similar feedback in the UK.
Mm-hmm. And Sasha?
And I hope just people see it and they're moved by it, and they just see like they just see like the point of that, like what like hate brings and what like not, and what like love brings. Because really truly, if you just accept someone, they're gonna be happy, and like you're gonna be happy. If you don't, then you're not gonna be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of like, just like, why do you care?
Uh-huh.
It's like most people are like, ugh, I can't believe that. It's like, wait, even if I do know you, like, why do you care?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just not helping anybody. So I hope people see that, and I just hope people love the movie.
Mm-hmm. And what's it like being famous now that you're in a film? Changed your life in any way?
No, not really.
Everyone just speaks the same way.
Well, it's hard. I mean, Sasha we haven't been out really. I mean, COVID is just, if you're in quarantine, it's kind of hard to. Sasha, maybe once you emerge fully, you'll have people running up to you asking for your autograph,
There was something that happened, and it was really, I was like, that's weird. So I was like at the Outfest drive-in, and my mom or my grandma was taking a picture of me, and I had my mask off, and these two people walked by, and they're like, I think that's the person that's the star of the movie. And I'm like, that was weird.
But they were right. You were.
They're right. I'm like, they're not wrong, but
You might have to get used to that kind of thing if you're going to be in more movies.
yeah.
So what's next for you, Anna?
I have a few things in development. It's sort of unclear what's next, but I've attached, for the first time because of the movie, I'm getting sent other people's scripts.
Mm-hmm.
So I've attached a few other projects, and we're trying to put those together now. And yeah, and then I'm writing my own stuff. So I'm very superstitious about talking about what I'm working on.
Sure.
I feel like it diminishes my ability to actually finish it.
Okay.
So I don't tell anyone what I'm writing about.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for doing this today. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
It was nice to see you again.
All your future projects.
Cowboys will be in virtual cinemas and available online from 7th of May 2021. Transmedia Watch are pleased to announce that Bluefinch Film Releasing, the distributors for Cowboys, have agreed to make available a small number of free online access codes which can be used to watch this film from Friday. If you'd like one of these, please send us a direct message on Twitter. Include your name and email address to which you would like the code sent. These are, however, strictly limited in number and will be allocated on a first-come, first-served basis. When they're gone, they're gone. So if you'd like a code, get in touch now.